If the GM has the absolute call and he walks into the room and it's time to make the pick at 144 and he says...
There's no meeting and we just say, I want this guy.
2 meetings. Right. What do you think the meetings were about? Consider the contact.
They took him off. And they took him off because the owner said take him off. I don't want that guy.
Tell me you got something positive to say about me. You always say negative stuff about me. And I'm like, I ain't do nothing to you. No. I ain't seen nothing positive that you ever said.
They told the Browns not to draft him. Not because he couldn't play, not because of off-field issues, but because they didn't want that guy in the league. Shedeur Sanders was predicted to go top 3. He went 144th. And now, the NFL commissioner himself had to step in, ordering the Browns to play him in Week 1. But what the team's owner said back left the league in pure chaos. This is the story the NFL hoped would stay buried. A story of secret phone calls, underground agreements, media manipulation, and a quarterback they never wanted to succeed. For months, scouts, analysts, and NFL insiders said the same thing. Shedeur Sanders is a franchise quarterback. Over 4,100 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, and a 74% completion rate in 2024. He wasn't just good, he was elite. A lock for the first round. Probably top 5.
I spent a large amount of the last 24 hours thinking about nothing more than I was thinking about collusion. Because how in the hell does 32 teams in the National Football League pass on a quarterback that was universally recognized as one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country entering this draft, and 32 teams passed on him?
So when the first 32 picks came and went without his name called, people were confused. By the second round, they were shocked. By the third, they were angry. By round 5, fans were demanding answers because 143 players were picked before Shedeur Sanders, including 5 quarterbacks many saw as less talented. And when his name finally came off the board, it was the Cleveland Browns, a team that had already drafted a QB just 2 rounds earlier. This wasn't just a surprise pick. It smelled like politics. And the internet exploded with theories. Was it about race? Was it about his father, Deion Sanders? Was Shedeur being punished for his confidence, his brand, his background? Even Stephen A. Smith couldn't hold back. He called the drop a public execution, comparing it to Colin Kaepernick-level blackballing. And it wasn't just outrage. It was suspicion.
The slide seen round the world, round after round, all eyes were on Shedeur Sanders, whose name was never called until the 5th round of the NFL draft Saturday, when the Cleveland Browns made Sanders the second quarterback they'd draft over the weekend.
Because something didn't add up. A quarterback with superstar stats, proven leadership, and NFL bloodlines somehow fell to the 5th round, and then the leaks started. Rumors of backroom deals, of owners telling GMs, do not draft Shedeur. It was turning into more than just a snub. This wasn't about football anymore. It was the beginning of a conspiracy, one that would take the NFL all the way to the top. As the rounds dragged on and Shedeur Sanders' name kept getting passed over, the NFL was facing a PR nightmare. Social media was on fire. Fans, analysts, and even former players were calling it what it looked like: a coordinated blackball. Behind the scenes, something big was brewing. According to multiple reports, and later confirmed by several insiders, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell personally picked up the phone. The call? Straight to Browns owner Jimmy Haslam. And it wasn't a casual suggestion. It was a warning.
This guy's coming in and he's not that guy. If he's going to be maybe a backup, backup quarterbacks are obscure. They're not guys that's in the forefront. And so if you're a team, do you want a guy that's going to come in with all the celebrity, everything that comes with Shedeur Sanders?
Sources say Goodell flat out ordered Haslam to make sure Sanders didn't go undrafted. Not because of talent, but because of optics. A black quarterback with elite stats, a famous father, and taut projections, falling completely out of the draft. During a time when the league claims to champion diversity, that would be a disaster. At the same time, Stephen A. Smith was blasting the league on ESPN, comparing Shedur's fall to Kaepernick 2.0. "You're telling me 32 teams passed on this kid without a reason?" he asked. "That ain't football. That's politics." But Haslam didn't exactly jump to obey. The Browns had already drafted Dylan Gabriel, a lesser-known QB from Oregon. Adding Shadur made no football sense, but the pressure kept building. Eventually, the Browns used their fifth-round pick, number 144, on Sanders. And according to leaked reports, they had 2 separate internal meetings just to discuss picking him. For a fifth-rounder?
I was considered one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft, and 143 picks came and went before you heard his name. Don't talk to me about football.
That never happens unless someone higher up is pulling strings. Insiders say the tension was real, not just in Cleveland, but across the NFL. Because Shadur wasn't just a controversial pick. He was a symbol of what the league wanted to avoid and what fans were no longer willing to ignore. But if the league thought forcing a pick behind closed doors would calm things down, they were about to regret it. As Shadur Sanders slid down the draft board, the NFL found itself on fire, but not in a good way. This wasn't just a player falling. It was a public relations disaster unfolding in real time. Social media erupted. Networks were demanding answers, and fans, they were calling it what it looked like, a blackballing. But what happened next was even more shocking. According to multiple insider reports, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell made a direct call to Browns owner Jimmy Haslam during the draft. And this wasn't a friendly suggestion.
I didn't sit up there and throw a pity party for Colin Kaepernick. I knew his career in the NFL was over the minute that the NFL organized that workout for him at the Atlanta Falcons practice facility.
It was a message. Draft him before this turns into a full-blown crisis. Goodell supposedly warned Haslam about the optical nightmare of letting a high-profile black quarterback with elite stats and Deion Sanders as a father go undrafted in a league supposedly prioritizing diversity. The NFL couldn't preach inclusion on Sundays while blackballing quarterbacks on draft day. At that point, the Browns already had 4 quarterbacks on roster and had just drafted one 2 rounds earlier. There was no clear football need, but after holding 2 emergency meetings that day, Cleveland used pick 144 on Shedeur. And Haslam, he publicly distanced himself from the decision the next day. "If you told me Friday night we were drafting Shadur," he said, "I would have said that's not happening." That confession confirmed what many suspected. The pick wasn't about football. It was about pressure. But the Browns weren't happy with it. And the league wasn't done by a long shot.
His talent is not a 5th-round talent. There's absolutely positively no excuse for waiting until the 5th round to take a quarterback who can play better than most quarterbacks available in the draft with the number of teams needing a quarterback. Y'all did this.
Because once Shadur arrived in Cleveland, the resistance would really begin. From the moment Shadur Sanders landed in Cleveland, it was clear he wasn't wanted. Not by the front office, not by the head coach, and definitely not by the owner. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam didn't just express doubts. He completely distanced himself from the decision, saying flat out, "If you told me Friday we were drafting Shadur, I'd have said that's not happening." Translation, this wasn't my call. He blamed the pick on GM Andrew Berry, throwing him under the bus, then backing over him again, just to make sure the message landed. This wasn't a united front. It was internal damage control. And fans weren't the only ones noticing.
Primetime Deion Sanders' natural bravado, coupled with that of his son, They say that the whole interview process wasn't that impressive. When he showed up at the NFL scouting combine and refused to work out, that hurt him. The interview process while he was there hurt him, etc., etc.
Behind closed doors, reports surfaced of multiple high-level meetings inside the Browns draft room just to talk about Sanders. Not something you'd expect for a fifth-rounder. But when the NFL commissioner is possibly leaning on you behind the scenes, you hold those meetings, whether you want to or not. The Browns had already taken QB Dylan Gabriel 2 rounds earlier. They also had Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Deshaun Watson on the roster. 5 quarterbacks, 1 locker room, no strategy. It wasn't a quarterback room. It was a circus, and the message was clear. Even if the league made us take him, we're not going to make it easy for him. Limited reps, cooler reactions, and growing internal tension. From day one, it felt like the Browns were trying to quietly bury Shedeur on the depth chart while holding the perfect excuse. Hey, we gave him a chance. He just didn't win the job. But what happened next? It made that excuse impossible to stick. At first, it looked like draft day drama, but then it turned into a full-blown scandal. Just days after the draft, NFL wildcard Antonio Brown dropped a bombshell. The owners had an agreement. Shedeur wasn't supposed to get drafted. Period. According to Brown, 31 teams had secretly agreed to blacklist Sanders, and the Browns only picked him after being pressured by the league office. It sounded insane until it didn't, because suddenly, others began backing it up. Boomer Esiason went live on air and confirmed he'd spoken to executives from multiple franchises. Their owners told them, take him off the board. I don't want that guy. Not wrong fit, not we don't need him, just I don't want him. Some insiders said he was labeled entitled. Others called it a diva problem. But the wording was eerily consistent, like it came straight from a script. And for critics of the NFL, this was deja vu. Colin Kaepernick, Eric Reed, Lamar Jackson's draft slide. Black quarterbacks, media lightning rods, punished not for talent, but for image. The conspiracy caught fire when lawyers got involved. A fan in Colorado filed a $100 million lawsuit, claiming racial bias and pointing to leaked emails. The suit even referenced a 61-page confidential report, allegedly showing evidence of collusion against black quarterbacks. Its contents are sealed, but rumors claim it outlines direct instructions from ownership groups to avoid Sanders entirely. From major networks to underground forums, people were connecting the dots. This wasn't just about slipping in the draft. This was about power, image, message control. And if even half of it was true, the NFL wasn't just in trouble. It was caught. If Shedeur Sanders thought getting drafted was his shot at redemption, he was dead wrong. The Browns didn't act like they just picked their future. They acted like he was a problem to manage, or better yet, make disappear. Despite high praise in minicamp, Sanders was barely getting any first-team reps in practice. Some insiders claimed he was throwing to equipment staff instead of actual wide receivers. Yes, equipment staff. Early reports painted a troubling picture. A fifth-round project quarterback getting treated like a walk-on, while the team favored almost everyone else. And then came preseason. With all eyes on him, Shedeur finally got live snaps. 14 completions, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. A poised, confident debut that had fans and even LeBron James hyping him up online. But days later, he was benched. The excuse? An oblique injury in practice, conveniently timed. Suddenly, the Browns' depth chart moved him back into the shadows, just as momentum was building. Stephen A. Smith was furious. ... You don't draft that kid. You don't bench that kid. What you're doing is setting him up to fail. And let's be honest, it felt that way. Bury him on the depth chart, limit his reps, undermine his development, then point and say, see, told you he wasn't ready. While fans were asking for more Shedeur, the Browns seemed desperate to show they didn't need him, even if it meant hurting their own team in the process. But the real spark came when Sanders finally snapped back. And the camera was rolling. What happened between him and a certain Cleveland reporter? That moment lit the fuse and forced everything into the public spotlight. By this point, the tension around Shedeur Sanders had reached a boiling point. Fans wanted answers. The franchise stayed silent. And the media? Relentlessly critical. No one more so than veteran reporter Tony Grossi, who seemed obsessed with discrediting Sanders, from training camp to press conferences. Every missed throw became headline news. Every rep he didn't get was spun as a failure, not a setup. And then it happened. After his preseason debut, the one that should have silenced critics, Sanders confronted Grossi directly in a moment that stunned everyone. "I be hoping you got something positive to say about me," Shedeur said. Calm but clearly fed up. "You always negative. What'd I do to you?" The moment was tense, raw, uncomfortable, and it was all caught on camera. Not by ESPN, not by the local news, but by Shedeur's brother, whose media company just happened to be filming at the time. Fans were divided. Some applauded Shedeur for standing up for himself. Others saw it as exactly what NFL executives feared: a player more concerned with reputation than results. Was it genuine? Or was it strategic? Because almost instantly, the clip went viral. Millions of views across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Narratives began to shift. Shedeur wasn't just a quarterback anymore. He was a media force. And for NFL teams trying to control the message, that made him even more dangerous. Between the viral soundbites, social media influence, and Deion's looming presence, Shedeur wasn't playing the NFL's game. He was playing his own, and that terrified the league more than any interception ever could. While Shedeur Sanders was stuck behind 4 other quarterbacks on the depth chart, he was also quietly becoming the highest-paid rookie in the entire league. Not from a contract, not from playing time, from endorsements. In 2025 alone, Sanders pulled in over $10 million in off-field deals, despite being drafted in the 5th round. His social media empire, NIL momentum from Colorado, and marketability, as Deion Sanders' son made him a marketer's dream. Coca-Cola, Nike, Beats, Fanatics, everybody wanted a piece of him, even while the Browns wanted to hide him. To make things even messier, his jersey was the top-selling rookie jersey in the NFL, beating out top picks, beating out starters. So now the Browns had a problem. The player they didn't want to develop, didn't want to start, and maybe didn't even want on the roster, had suddenly become their biggest moneymaker. And when fans are wearing your jersey, following your every move online, and chanting your name in preseason, you can't just stash that quarterback like he's a long-term project. The fans won't let you. The NFL couldn't ignore it either. This was becoming bigger than football. A full-on cultural brand wrapped inside a messy draft day conspiracy and spiraling into a PR tug-of-war between perception and performance. The Browns wanted to bury him. America wanted to watch him. And whether they liked it or not, Shedeur Sanders was now the face of a conversation the league didn't want to have. By the time the dust settled, one question was hanging over the entire football world. Did Shedeur Sanders actually earn his way into the NFL? Or was it all a PR cover-up? Because once you break it down, things get suspicious. Fast. Not only did the Browns draft him late, they also traded up to get him at pick 144. Why trade up for a guy you've publicly said you didn't want? It looked like panic. Like someone upstairs whispered, "Get this done before it blows up." A last-minute scramble, not a long-term plan. And this wasn't the Browns doing Shedeur a favor. It felt more like they were doing the league a favor, trying to plug a leak before a media flood hit. That move quieted things for about 5 minutes. Then came the leaks, the lawsuits, the viral clips, and just like that, the NFL was back in crisis mode. Goodell eventually denied any blackballing in a press conference, pointing to Tom Brady's 6th-round selection as proof. Draft slides happen. This league doesn't blacklist talent, he said. But that logic didn't hold up. Because if everything was above board, why did the commissioner need to get involved at all? Why did the pick require multiple Browns ownership meetings? And most of all, why was the player they tried to hide now the most talked about, endorsed, and followed rookie in the NFL? Was this redemption or reputation management? That's the twist no one can answer yet. But if the NFL thinks the conversation ends here, they haven't met Deion Sanders' son. Because whether you believe he was set up to fail or saved by the system, Shedur's story is just getting started. All the signs were there. A top-tier quarterback talent, an inexplicable draft slide, reports of secret meetings, commissioner calls, owner resistance, and backstage deals. It wasn't just bizarre. It was calculated. Whether you believe in the conspiracy or not, here's what's undeniable. Shedeur Sanders was a projected first-rounder. He went 144th. The NFL stepped in, allegedly, to force a draft pick. The Browns didn't want him and didn't hide it. Yet today, he's the most marketable rookie in the league. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when football becomes political, when image matters more than talent, and control matters more than potential. And maybe that's exactly why the league feared him. A quarterback who won't stay quiet, a father who can hijack headlines, a brand bigger than the rookie salary scale, and a ceiling that just might crack the very system trying to contain him. Shedeur didn't just survive the sabotage, he used it. Every slight, every snub, every rumor. He turned it into fire. And now the NFL has a real problem. They didn't want him, but they might have just created a superstar they can't silence. So the only question left is this. Did the league hand him the platform or open the door for him to take over? Because if this was all an accident, it might be the biggest mistake the NFL has made since Colin Kaepernick. And if it wasn't, then Shedeur Sanders just became the most dangerous player in football.